After the very shocking Tuesday evening incident where lawyer Mathew Kyalo Mbobu was shot on his way home and he passed on, there are a few theories that have emerged. One of the most fascinating is a connection to the 2022 still mysterious presidential elections that got Ruto elected to the presidency. Okay, and many people are going with that. But there are also other theories. But on my show today, we're not wasting time. We're cutting to the chase and we're zeroing in on one particular direction where information and possible evidence keeps on popping up again and again and again. And it is super fascinating. Why do I say that? Because we're in the season of exposure. Remember what we have said on this channel many countless times? Something happens and then it opens a whole big huge can of worms. Just a small mistake somebody made, thinking that he's solving the problem, ends up opening up, blowing up the can of worms, smelly worms, so that everybody can see the contents. In my opinion, at this early stage, and remember you had it first on this very favorite channel of yours, in my opinion, this case of the slain lawyer Mathew Kyalo Mbobu, it is going to explode. It is going to open a can of worms. Indeed, those who made the terrible wrong decision to bump him off are now sweating and deeply regretting, because a small thing went wrong here and another thing went wrong there, and now it is out there in the open. Folks, brace yourself for a show and a half. Twende kazi. Now, before I give you the information that will make your ears ring, let us rule out this theory of a connection to the IEBC. Okay? Now, the late Bwana Mobu was a lawyer. Lawyers, one of their currencies is information. And there is something called client-lawyer privilege. Information that your client gives you is protected. It cannot be revealed, and a lawyer knows that. That is an important point to remember when you start hearing these theories. Oh, he had this information, oh, he had that information, etc., etc. Hakuna kitu kama hiyo. Okay? It is true, of course, that Mathew Kyalo Mbobu was heavily involved in the elections, and even in 2022. Along with Raphael Tuju and former AG Amos Wako, they visited the home of Wafula Chebukati, the then chairman of the IEBC, when tallying was going on, in the early hours of the morning at 3 a.m. Okay? And of course the reason they visited him was that the other side were already aware, the side that was not William Ruto, the other side were already aware what was cooking. And they visited Chebukati to try and stop it. That's the long and short of it. And this lawyer was there. Okay? That is true. But ask yourself, yes, this was a controversial visit, but what possible information would you have gotten there or been privy to that would cause somebody else, another human being, to feel that his life has to end? Tell me. I don't see anything. I don't think there's anything. Okay? Now let's move to the nitty-gritty. And let us start with the way it was done, the way it was executed. This is very important because it's going to give us some information on the people who are sent, and then hopefully we can get a rough idea of the people who sent these people ambaye waliua lawyer Mathew Kyalo Mbobu. Okay? Now, according to the post-mortem results which have just come out, the government pathologist says alipigwa risasi mara 8 times. And we have to speculate that maybe there are some which missed completely. Okay? I'll come back to that in a minute. And of course he passed on from excessive bleeding. Usually, mtu akipigwa risasi, the most common cause of death is excessive bleeding. Yeah, so no surprises there. And very interesting, some of these risasis were in the neck. Now I found that very fascinating for the simple reason that that suggests that somebody alikuwa amelenga kichwa and they missed. That is what it suggests. And I don't think I need to remind you, all this was at very close range. Okay? Muuaji broke the side window of the vehicle on the driver's side. That was very close range. I'm sure most of us get it. This has amateur, non-professional written all over it. Now that is fascinating, isn't it? Contrast this to what happened to the then legislator for Kabete constituency. I believe nowadays we call it Kikuyu. Yeah? George Mushai's assassination on February 7th, 2015. A lone gunman stood in front of the vehicle, and by the way in the vehicle was MP Bwana Mushai sandwiched between 2 bodyguards, and there was another bodyguard seated on the front seat, and then there was his driver. A lone gunman stood in front of the vehicle and started with the driver to ensure that the vehicle is completely immobilized, and then akamaliza wale wengine, and remember the bodyguards were armed, before they could react. And get this, that lone gunman used less than 8 risasis. Of course it is pretty obvious. Somebody with that level of skill and training, it is very difficult to find them outside the service of the government. Okay? That should be clear. Or even if we take the example of the most recent, on April 30th this year, the MP for Kaspur, Charles Ongondo Were, along Gong Road, the assassin involved did not break any window in the vehicle. Walipiga risasi through the glass. And again it happened so fast, nobody had any time to react. And they got away on the motorbike. Now this case of lawyer Mathew Kyalo Mbobu was very messy because some members of the public even attempted to chase after the motorbike, but were not successful. And then there were so many witnesses who saw it all happening. The breaking of the glass, the firing, all those risasis, etc., etc. So, let's put it all together. And I hope you're still with me, yeah, because on this channel we deal with facts. Although very many people do not like this government, it is good we talk facts. It is highly unlikely that this particular hit had anything to do with the government, which would also rule out the election manenos. Okay? Before I go any further, let me also remind you that we're in the nation called Kenya. Yeah? Tomorrow, wakubwa can sit down and decide to come out with a certain narrative. And then you will say, "Aye, what was Chris Kumekucha telling us? This narrative makes sense." Something like that. So, be aware of that. Let's proceed. Now, we have already agreed that the likelihood of a lawyer being bumped off because of information they have is highly unlikely. It's not there, actually. Yeah? However, everything changes if that lawyer is a key witness, and if that lawyer is carrying a lot of evidence in a particular case. Then that changes. It is no longer about the lawyer with information. It is about the witness with information who also happens to be a lawyer. And that is a deadly witness because they understand the law. They understand the impact of the information they have. They understand, even before they give their testimony in a court of law, the impact of the information they are unleashing in that case. Would you agree with me? Now, a few hours ago, a cousin of former President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, a man called Captain Kungu Muigai, Captain retired of the military, has come out with some explosive information. While mourning the passing away of lawyer Mobu, the captain told us that the late lawyer was very critical in an ongoing case, and in fact he was the custodian of some key evidence in that case. Now, doesn't that pique your interest? What is this case all about? This case is about a disputed 443-acre piece of land that belongs to the Muigai family. Yeah, that's Captain Kungu Muigai and the late Ngengi Muigai. And this case, Ninyeti. What happened is that a major bank sold a very valuable piece of property, this 443-acre piece of land, to somebody at only 70 million when it was worth billions. And this other somebody, after a year, sold the land still to somebody else for, wait for this one, 3.5 billion Kenya shillings. Now already you can see there's something very fishy going on. Okay, that should be clear. Now, bang at the center of this case is a judgment that was supposed to have been passed in 1992. Now the strange thing here, nobody can find that judgment. Folks, this is Kenya. Let me slow down a bit in case you've missed it. You know, there are some things you can do on the strength of a judgment of a court of law. You take the document, this is the judgment which has been passed over this, and therefore this gives me authority to sell this. Simnanyita? Yes. And so it is very possible in this country called Kenya. I'm not saying this is what happened. I'm just giving a hypothetical situation. It is very possible to pretend that there's a judgment. It is even possible for somebody to do some pap at a photocopy shop, yeah, and pretend that a certain document is a judgment. Of course, that is criminal. But at the center of this saga is a missing judgment. And the case gets even juicier. The late lawyer Mathew Kyalo Mbobu had vital evidence from witnesses, yeah, some of whom were involved, some of whom were there when some certain judges were being bribed. Judges of the High Court, judges of the Court of Appeal, and judges of the Supreme Court. Okay? They have this evidence. I believe that the idea of Captain Kungu is to prove in a court of law that some fishy business went on that resulted in the family losing their land. And at the center of it was that some judges, some judicial officers were compromised. What? Now, it is possible that this case has absolutely nothing to do with the bumping off, very brutal, of the lawyer Mathew Kyalo Mbobu. It is possible. It's a possibility. And if that is true, then the people who are behind getting rid of the lawyer are now responsible for bringing to public prominence, for exposing a very crazy case that apparently has been going on for some time. This case would not have come to such public attention had that Tuesday bumping off never happened. I'm sure you follow me. And I say again, we are in the season of exposure. Please, there are some things which you did before and you got away with. It will not be possible for you to do them and get away with them in this season of exposure. Indeed, now a lot of attention, and I'm sure very unwanted attention, has come to this case. And I'm sure those involved are now very worried. And because they're very worried, because we don't know how powerful these people are. We don't know who these people know. You know, this is Kenya. Okay? But now it is going to get very messy. Extremely messy. And there's a high likelihood that some very explosive information is going to come out of all this at the end of the day. And to throw in even more fireworks into this drama, Amason Kingi, the Speaker of the Senate, is very upset about this development. Apparently he was fairly close to the late lawyer. He says the late lawyer was even at one point his lecturer in law. And you know, when people get upset, they go out of their way to make things right for their beloved departed. Hey, I just thought I should give you that heads up. That super fascinating information that has emerged concerning this case that has really attracted the attention of so many Kenyans. We are in the Kipindi cha Lala Salama, so if you have not seen this special report, please take action today and get hold of it. And you're going to understand a lot of things, including the things we've talked about in this particular show. You can see details on your screens right now. For only Kenya shillings 1,999, you can get this amazing special report. And also another bonus video that gives you a practical example of how this blind place worked recently in Nairobi and caused miracles to happen. Okay? Now, one excellent way of making sure you never miss any special report going forward, including this one, is to join our Golden Pass members or Golden Key. You can see details of that on your screen right now. Regulars will remember that we launched this, I Gifted People, during our celebration of 20 great years of the Kumekucha brand. But now, due to a lot of you demanding, we have decided to include a few more people in this exclusive group, where going forward, you will never need to pay for anything Kumekucha. Yeah, it's not annual, it's permanent. For only Kenya shillings 6,333. Okay, so if you're in a position, please take action quickly. If not, you can still order the Gachagua report for only Kenya shillings 1,999, and you'll have that valuable information. In my opinion, where we have reached as a country, we all have to remain super alert and very well informed, because anything can happen at any time. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.